Welcome, Class 11 Biology students. Today, we are diving into the fascinating world of circulatory pathways, how blood travels through our bodies and other organisms. From simple worms to complex humans, understanding these pathways is key to grasping life's intricate transport systems. We'll journey through this topic, starting with the basics and progressing to competitive level insights, unraveling the evolutionary marvels of circulation. Let's begin. Ready to explore the highways of your body? Let's start with the fundamental types of circulatory pathways. Circulatory pathways are essentially the routes that blood, or a similar fluid, takes to move throughout an organism. Their main purpose is to transport vital substances like oxygen, nutrients, and hormones to every cell, while also carrying away waste products. Think of them as the body's internal delivery and waste management system, crucial for sustaining life. We broadly classify these pathways into two main types: open and closed circulatory systems. In an open system, the fluid, called hemolymph, is pumped into open spaces, directly bathing the tissues. Imagine a sponge soaking up water. This is common in insects and most mollusks. In contrast, a closed system keeps blood strictly within vessels, arteries, veins, and capillaries, ensuring a more controlled and efficient flow. Earthworms and all vertebrates, including us, have closed systems. Within closed circulatory systems, we further distinguish between single and double circulation. In single circulation, as seen in fish, blood passes through the heart only once during a complete circuit. The heart pumps deoxygenated blood to the gills for oxygenation, and then this oxygenated blood flows directly to the rest of the body before returning to the heart. The downside is that blood pressure drops significantly after passing through the delicate gill capillaries. Double circulation, found in birds and mammals, is more advanced. Here, blood passes through the heart twice in one complete circuit. It involves two separate loops: the pulmonary circuit, which carries blood between the heart and lungs for oxygenation, and the systemic circuit, which carries oxygenated blood from the heart to the rest of the body and back. This ensures higher pressure and more efficient delivery of oxygen to all tissues. Time to test your understanding. Here are 3 practice questions. Q1. Which type of circulatory system involves blood flowing in open spaces? Q2. Give an example of an organism with a closed circulatory system. Q3. How many times does blood pass through the heart in a single circulatory system during one complete cycle? Pause, think, and answer. Now, let's deepen our understanding, exploring the details and nuances of these circulatory pathways. Let's dive deeper into the open circulatory system. Here, the circulatory fluid isn't strictly blood, it's called hemolymph, a mixture of blood and interstitial fluid. A simple heart pumps this hemolymph into open cavities, or sinuses, known as the hemocoel. Within these sinuses, the hemolymph directly bathes the body's organs and tissues, facilitating the exchange of nutrients and waste. This system is generally less efficient, characterized by lower blood pressure and slower circulation, making it more suited for smaller, less active organisms. It also offers less precise control over where the hemolymph flows. In contrast, closed circulatory systems, where blood is always confined within vessels, provide significantly higher pressure, faster flow, and much more efficient delivery of oxygen and nutrients. This system allows for precise regulation of blood flow to specific organs by adjusting vessel diameter, an evolutionary advantage that supports higher metabolic rates and larger body sizes, as seen in complex organisms. In a fish's single circulatory system, the heart, which has only 2 chambers, one atrium and one ventricle, plays a crucial role. Deoxygenated blood from the body first enters the atrium, then moves to the ventricle. The ventricle then pumps this blood directly to the gills, where it gets oxygenated. From the gills, this oxygenated blood then flows directly to all the body tissues without returning to the heart. After delivering oxygen and nutrients, it becomes deoxygenated and returns to the heart, completing the single circuit. A key limitation here is that the blood pressure drops significantly after passing through the tiny capillaries of the gills, which means the oxygenated blood flows to the body tissues at a much lower pressure and speed. This lower pressure limits the overall metabolic rate and activity levels of fish. This is why more active vertebrates developed more efficient systems. Now, let's look at incomplete double circulation, a transitional stage found in amphibians and most reptiles. These animals possess a three-chambered heart, comprising two atria but only one common ventricle. Deoxygenated blood from the body enters the right atrium, while oxygenated blood from the lungs or skin enters the left atrium. Both types of blood then flow into the single ventricle, leading to some degree of mixing. However, the ventricle's internal structure often has ridges or folds that help minimize this mixing, allowing for a somewhat separated, though not entirely distinct, flow. While less efficient than complete double circulation, this system is a significant improvement over single circulation, providing higher blood pressure to systemic tissues and supporting their often ectothermic lifestyles. Finally, birds and mammals exhibit complete double circulation, characterized by a four-chambered heart. This ensures complete separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, allowing for maximum efficiency in oxygen delivery and nutrient transport, which is vital for maintaining their high metabolic rates and warm-blooded nature. Alright, let's solidify your knowledge with 5 medium-level questions. Q1. What is hemolymph and in which circulatory system is it found? Q2. List 2 advantages of a closed circulatory system over an open one. Q3. Describe the path of blood in a fish's single circulatory system starting from the heart. Q4. Differentiate between pulmonary and systemic circulation in humans. Q5. Why is the circulation in amphibians considered incomplete double circulation? Take your time to answer each one. Ready to challenge yourself? Let's delve into the intricate analysis and theoretical connections of circulatory pathways. The evolution of circulatory systems is a remarkable journey, driven by the increasing metabolic demands of life. It started from simple diffusion in organisms like cnidarians, progressing to open systems in arthropods and mollusks, which provided a basic means of transport. The advent of closed systems in annelids and vertebrates marked a significant leap, offering much greater efficiency. This evolutionary pressure also led to the gradual development of the heart, from the two-chambered heart of fish to the three-chambered heart in amphibians and most reptiles, and finally, the highly efficient four-chambered heart found in birds and mammals. This progression reflects a constant drive towards greater separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood and more effective delivery of oxygen and nutrients. When we compare open versus closed systems, the differences are profound. Open systems are characterized by low pressure and slow flow, where hemolymph directly bathes tissues, making them suitable for smaller, less active organisms. Closed systems, however, maintain high pressure and fast flow, with blood confined to vessels, allowing for precise control and highly efficient delivery, essential for larger, more active animals. Let's further compare single and double circulation systems. In single circulation, typical of fish, the major disadvantage is the significant drop in blood pressure after blood passes through the gills. This results in slower blood flow and less efficient oxygen delivery to the body tissues, thereby limiting their metabolic rates. On the other hand, double circulation, as seen in mammals and birds, offers substantial advantages. It allows for a high-pressure systemic circuit, ensuring efficient oxygen and nutrient delivery to all body tissues. Simultaneously, it maintains a separate, low-pressure pulmonary circuit, which protects the delicate lung capillaries from damage. This complete separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is crucial for sustaining the high metabolic rates and constant body temperatures characteristic of endothermic animals. This dual system provides precise control over blood flow to meet varying tissue demands. Now, consider the physiological adaptations present in organisms with incomplete double circulation, like amphibians and most reptiles. These ectothermic animals have lower metabolic rates, so the complete separation of blood is not as critical as it is for endotherms. Furthermore, some reptiles, like crocodilians, despite having a three-chambered heart, possess unique structures like the foramen of Panizza, which allows them to shunt blood and bypass the lungs during dives, demonstrating a complex adaptation to their environment. The mammalian and avian four-chambered heart represents the pinnacle of circulatory efficiency. The complete septum dividing the ventricles ensures absolute separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. This prevents any mixing, maximizing the oxygen saturation of blood delivered to systemic tissues. This efficiency is paramount for supporting the high metabolic rates required for endothermy, maintaining a constant body temperature, and for sustained physical activity. Without this complete separation, the demands of a high-energy lifestyle simply couldn't be met. Beyond the basic circuits, we also encounter specialized circulatory routes known as portal systems. A classic example is the hepatic portal system, where blood rich in absorbed nutrients and potential toxins from the digestive organs flows directly to the liver via the hepatic portal vein, rather than immediately entering the general circulation. This allows the liver to process, store, or detoxify these substances before they reach the rest of the body. Another vital example is the hypophyseal portal system, which connects the hypothalamus to the anterior pituitary gland, ensuring that hypothalamic hormones reach the pituitary in high concentrations, directly regulating its functions. These specialized pathways highlight the intricate design and regulatory capabilities of the circulatory system. It's time for some challenging questions. Q1. Explain the evolutionary pressure that led to the development of closed circulatory systems from open ones. Q2. Compare and contrast the advantages and disadvantages of single versus double circulatory pathways in terms of oxygen delivery and blood pressure. Q3. How do the physiological needs of amphibians and most reptiles correlate with their incomplete double circulatory system? Q4. Describe the pathway of blood in the hepatic portal system, including its significance. Q5. Why is the complete separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood crucial for endothermic animals like birds and mammals? Q6. What is the main difference in blood pressure regulation between open and closed circulatory systems? Q7. If a mutation caused the ventricle of a fish heart to become two-chambered, how would it affect its circulation? Good luck! Now, for the ultimate challenge. Let's explore the competitive depth, intricate mechanisms, and engineering insights within circulatory pathways. This is NEET-level mastery. Let's trace the phylogenetic trends in circulatory systems, a journey reflecting increasing complexity and efficiency. Annelids, like the earthworm, showcase the earliest true closed system. They lack a centralized pumping heart but possess 5 pairs of aortic arches that act as contractile vessels, pushing blood through dorsal and ventral vessels. Interestingly, insects, despite being highly active, utilize an open system. Their high metabolic demands are met not by their circulatory system, but by a highly branched tracheal system that delivers oxygen directly to tissues, making the hemolymph less critical for gas transport. Mollusks present a fascinating case of diversity. While most gastropods and bivalves have open systems, highly active cephalopods, like octopuses and squids, have evolved closed systems with accessory hearts, demonstrating convergent evolution for increased activity. This highlights how different evolutionary paths can lead to similar functional outcomes. Understanding these variations provides crucial insight into the adaptive strategies organisms employ to survive and thrive in diverse environments, each system optimized for its specific physiological context. Delving into fluid dynamics, the contrast between open and closed systems becomes even clearer. Open systems, with their lack of continuous, high-resistance vessels, operate at significantly lower hydrostatic pressures. Hemolymph movement often relies on general body movements and simple muscle contractions, making precise control over flow to specific tissues quite challenging. In stark contrast, closed systems maintain high hydrostatic pressure, which is vital for rapid and efficient transport. This pressure is meticulously regulated by an extensive network of arterioles and precapillary sphincters, which can constrict or dilate. This allows for precise redirection of blood flow to meet the varying metabolic demands of different tissues. Here, Poiseuille's law becomes highly relevant. It states that resistance to flow is inversely proportional to the fourth power of the vessel's radius. This means even a small change in arteriole diameter can dramatically alter blood flow and pressure, enabling sophisticated physiological control, a key engineering principle underlying the efficiency of vertebrate circulation. This precise control is fundamental to maintaining homeostasis and supporting complex physiological processes. Let's revisit incomplete double circulation with a deeper understanding of its adaptive significance. In crocodilians, for instance, despite possessing a functionally four-chambered heart with a complete ventricular septum, they have a unique structure called the foramen of Panizza. This opening between the left and right aorta allows for blood shunting, enabling them to bypass the pulmonary circulation. This is not a flaw, but a sophisticated adaptation, particularly useful during prolonged dives when lungs are not functional, conserving oxygen for the brain and heart. It also allows for directing blood to the gut during digestion, when oxygen demand for absorption is high. Amphibians, with their mixed circulation, also benefit from this adaptability, as it supports their bimodal respiration through both lungs and skin. The mixed blood allows for efficient gas exchange across their moist skin, even when lung respiration is limited. Beyond the well-known hepatic and hypophyseal portal systems, consider the renal portal system, present in fish, amphibians, and reptiles but absent in birds and mammals. Here, deoxygenated blood from the posterior body parts passes through the kidneys before returning to the heart. This provides an additional filtration step for waste removal from this specific blood supply. Its absence in mammals reflects a more direct and efficient venous return to the heart, with the kidneys filtering systemic arterial blood directly. These specialized pathways highlight the remarkable diversity and functional optimization of circulatory design across different vertebrate groups, each tailored to specific environmental and physiological demands. The comparative cardiology across vertebrates reveals a clear evolutionary trajectory towards optimizing cardiac output and metabolic support. Fish, with their two-chambered hearts and single circulation, have the lowest cardiac output, limiting their activity levels. Amphibians and reptiles, with their three-chambered hearts, achieve a higher cardiac output than fish, but the mixing of blood still imposes limitations. However, birds and mammals, with their four-chambered hearts and complete double circulation, exhibit the highest cardiac output, crucial for sustaining their high metabolic rates, endothermy, and energetic lifestyles. This complete separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is a key innovation. Finally, let's consider pathophysiology and evolutionary relics. In mammalian fetal circulation, the lungs are non-functional, so blood bypasses them via two crucial shunts, the foramen ovale, between the atria, and the ductus arteriosus, connecting the pulmonary artery to the aorta. These are adaptive fetal pathways. However, if they fail to close after birth, they become pathological, leading to conditions like patent ductus arteriosus or patent foramen ovale. These conditions cause mixing of blood and can lead to serious cardiovascular issues, effectively reverting to a less efficient, more ancestral circulatory pattern. This insight not only explains congenital heart defects but also provides a powerful link between developmental biology and evolutionary history, underscoring the delicate balance of physiological adaptation. Let's tackle the first 5 hardest questions to deepen your competitive edge. Q1. discuss the evolutionary progression of circulatory systems from annelids to mammals, highlighting the key structural and functional advancements. Q2. Explain how Poiseuille's law applies to the regulation of blood flow in closed circulatory systems, and contrast this with the limitations in open systems. Q3. Elaborate on the adaptive significance of the foramen of Panizza in crocodilians, explaining how it provides a physiological advantage rather than representing an evolutionary imperfection. Q4. Describe the functional differences between the renal portal system, found in lower vertebrates, and its absence in mammals, relating it to kidney function and overall circulatory efficiency. Q5. Analyze the role of the hypothalamic hypophyseal portal system in endocrine regulation, emphasizing why direct transport of hormones is crucial in this pathway. Now, let's continue with the remaining 5 hardest questions to truly master this topic. Q6. Compare the cardiac output efficiency across fish, amphibians, and mammals, correlating it with their metabolic rates and thermoregulatory strategies. Q7. How do fetal circulatory shunts in mammals, such as the ductus arteriosus and foramen ovale, reflect ancestral circulatory patterns, and what are the pathological implications if they persist postnatally? Q8. In an open circulatory system, how might the oxygen-carrying capacity of hemolymph compare to blood in a closed system, and what alternative mechanism do insects use for efficient gas exchange? Q9. Consider a hypothetical organism that is very large and highly active, yet possesses an open circulatory system. What physiological challenges would it face, and what compensatory mechanisms might be necessary for its survival? Q10. Discuss the concept of convergent evolution as it applies to the development of closed circulatory systems in different invertebrate phyla like annelids and cephalopods. Good luck with these advanced concepts. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into circulatory pathways. We've journeyed from the basics of open and closed systems to the intricate details of evolutionary adaptations and complex fluid dynamics. I hope this session has not only clarified your understanding but also sparked your curiosity for the marvels of biology. For more such engaging and in-depth educational content, make sure to visit synapse.omaps.in. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for regular updates and more exciting lessons. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep aiming for excellence. See you in the next session.